Hello everyone, this is Samirian, and this is episode 4 of building a toy box from scratch. In the last episode, we finished getting a dynamic trigger, also working on that path above, also going exactly where the camera goes, and figuring out what the exact size of that dynamic trigger should be. We also fixed up the train a bit up there, just to give ourselves a better representation of the gameplay area we're going to have. And now we're going to be working on the next piece of gameplay logic, which is going to be townspeople spawning on that side and moving over to that side. But before we do that, the logic's starting to get a little messy here, just because of the way we've been laying it out to figure things out. So I'm going to tighten it up just so that I can keep, what I like to do is keep certain procedures all together. So in this case, this is all our camera, or even better, our path controls. We're going to get all our path controls generally in the same spot. I'm also going to get rid of that kill switch because I don't want it. I was just using it for testing. And I just find this a lot easier because I can separate everything into their own little areas. And that makes it a little easier to find stuff again. This dynamic trigger is probably going to be part of multiple logic, so I'll keep it a little off to the side there. So our goal is going to be spawn townspeople here, have them go over to other side. Now, I don't want to do it with a path because I actually want to be able to, later in the game, move them with with further gameplay up, back and forth along the path. So I don't want to put them on a path, so we're going to have to do this a little differently. So first things first, we're going to want a locator up here for where they're going to spawn. Now the thing with the locator is, I actually want it more in the center. Right there. Now the thing with the locator is in certain instances, like when you're spawning enemies, ships, friends, stuff like that, there's a little blue knob on it, you can see right there, and that is the direction that things will be pointed when they spawn. So as you see, I just turned it this way, so things will be facing this way when they spawn. Just a nice little trick to know at times. So I'm going to set it up first so that one thing spawns and we get it to go the whole way across. So, friend generator. We're going to drop that here. And we are going to hook it up to the locator up here. Perfect. Now, what I want is under friend generator's properties, you can set the behavior that the spawned friend is going to have. Now, I want them to look like they're fleeing, but flee will not work because flee is going to have them freely running around, and that's the opposite of what I want. I want complete control of where this townsperson is going. So what I want them to do is I really want them to stand still so I can move them myself, but stand still looks boring, so I'm just going to see if there's anything that looks more like a we'll try disproof. Looks more like they're panicked a little bit, but at the same time standing still. So we're going to put down a button again for testing. So for now, if I do just a simple button test, what do we want to spawn? Let's just spawn let's spawn Kermit the Frog. So we'll quickly spawn Kermit the Frog here. And go take a look at him. See what he's doing. So we can already see he is facing the right way, so that's great. And he is standing still. He's really not doing a whole lot of anything. But for now, this will work for me. So what we want to happen is when they spawn, we want them to slowly work their way across all the way over to the water over there. And how we're going to do that is we're going to use a weather vane. And we're going to simplify using this weather vane because we can set a weather vane to work on any friend or enemy. And let's try a force of 8. And we're going to set it so that when we press it, it'll turn it on. And if we need to turn it off for some reason, let's give ourselves a second button for now, so that if I press this second button, it'll turn off that weather vane. Alright, get rid of that Kermit. So let's go and look and see how fast Kermit's moving across. That's a pretty good clip he's moving at. That might be a little faster than I wanted, but that's easy to slow down. Okay, so we deleted him. And I'm going to turn that off momentarily. Set the speed. Let's try 6. Now, when the townsperson gets to the other side, gets to the water here, we want them to be safe. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a trigger area here. And we're going to say if we use a logic gate as an anchor point, because we're going to want to add a bunch of things to this at some point. But for now, we're going to put a logic gate right here. We're going to say if an AI enters that trigger area, and let's say any for now, then input to that logic gate. And of course I deleted that kill switch for some reason, because at this point I do want to get rid of the enemy if they've made it all the way across. So I will say output defeat. And there we go. Now we basically have the beginnings of some logic, so that Kermit is going to slowly work his way across to the other side. And once he gets there, he's going to disappear. So now we were saying we need to ensure that they're never, when we're spawning these guys, they're never within, what was it I said, 4 blocks of each other? Now 4 blocks is if, okay. So now, has he disappeared yet? He has disappeared. Excellent. Now we're going to start spawning them a little quicker. I'm actually going to put a repeater up for now and start testing how far in between, or how quickly I can spawn another townsperson and still keep that distance that I want to keep. So we're going to get a repeater here. So I'm going to take this button and say that will turn on the repeater. And I'm going to use this button to turn it off. And I'm not going to use that to do the frenzator. I'm going to say any repeat is going to give us a townsperson. And this time, instead of Kermit the Frog, let's go with Miss Piggy. Why not? And the repeaters by default are set to a time of 5 seconds. So we're going to test and see what happens if we spawn Miss Piggy 5 seconds apart. So there we go. And we'll come up to the top here. And here comes Miss Piggy. And 5 seconds is looking hard to tell for sure. Yeah, 5 seconds is looking just too close. It would be 5 seconds is the very least you could get away with, I think. So let's set this repeater to... let's add another option to this button as well. When I press it for now, since this is all about testing, I want to get rid of all the townspeople that are probably just wandering around up there now. So we're going to remove all. And let's set this repeater to 6 seconds. I think 6 seconds is what we're looking for here. That might be the perfect number. And that'll be the absolute quickest you can spawn between enemies. And safely keep the required distance. Where's that line? There it is. Line. Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, 6 seconds, I believe, is the number we were looking for. If we do, if we spawn townspeople any quicker than 6 seconds apart, we could run into problems with our gameplay. So we're going to keep that 6 seconds as special. That's the number we need to remember. Because we've set up the basic logic to get our townsperson from that side over to this side and then get rid of them. But what we really want to happen is we really want it to be a repetitive thing that keeps happening, and as it happens we want it to actually speed up. So let's say at the very beginning they're spawning 15 seconds apart, but by the end of the gameplay you want them spawning at that 6 seconds apart to really start making the gameplay harder and harder. So what we've done now is we've figured out how to do the basic gameplay, but now we're going to do the actual gameplay to control that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use, again, a logic chain to control this. Which means we have to know what kind of timings are we actually looking for here. And I like the idea of, let's say, 15 seconds, 12 seconds, 9 seconds, 6 seconds. I kind of like that idea. And that gives us 4 different speeds. And we have enough of a logic chain here to control 4 different possible outputs. That seems to work beautifully. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have it... Now in a case like this, where I have something that's spawning constantly, what I generally do is I set an extra logic gate at the front, and I call that like a control point, so that every time I'm resetting this, I have to send an input to that control point logic gate, because at that point, if I ever need the gameplay to stop, I just close this logic gate and it won't send the signal on to the rest of our chain to keep things happening. So, do I want to use repeaters? I don't think I do want to use repeaters in this case. I want to use time delayers for this, just so that I keep a lot better control over everything. Alright, so I'm going to want 4 time delayers, and the way we're going to track all this is counters. So I also want 4 counters. So this will be the top for our logic chain, and it will receive a signal from our control logic gate here. And then to do a simple logic chain, we're going to have to do input block to the first one, to input to the second, and also do input block to the second one, to input to the third one. Now the logic I did over here, where I have the bottom open and closing, or if the bottom receives an open or close, close the top one. I'm not going to do that over here because this logic chain doesn't have to be as smart. When the game starts, it's always going to start up here, and it's going to wait for something to happen to close this first logic gate. And logic gates are always by default set to open when you first start a toy box. So in essence, what I'm saying is a logic chain where I do that open close is a little smarter, and it has to be because it's a little more live, it's a little more vibrant. It's not always going to work in the exact same order, but in a logic chain like this, it's always going to work in the exact same order. At first, I always want, when it receives a signal, it's always going to start with the longest time delayer, and the longest time delayer is going to be set to 15 seconds. So at the very beginning of the game, 15 seconds in between spawns. And I'm actually going to use an anchor point for the spawns, and we'll get to why in a bit. I'm going to put an anchor point right here and say delay completed, input to that guy. Now also, if the delay is completed, I want to increment this first counter. And what the counters are going to be doing is they're going to be controlling how long the gameplay is going to keep going, where it's going to be 15 seconds in between enemies. So I'm going to say the first minute. So we'll put this target count to 4. Should I go minute? No. I'm only going to give you the first few. The first 3 townspeople are going to spawn slow, and then it's going to start to speed up. So let's say the first 45 seconds of the game, you're going to have plenty of time until the next townsperson spawns. So when that counter reaches its target count of 3, it is going to close this first logic gate. So then the next time a signal is passed through, it will pass through this gate and come out this one, where the output is going to go to the second timer, which is going to be set to 12, I believe we said. And it is also going to go to this anchor point here, and it's also going to increment that counter by 1. And 12 seconds, let's go with, we'll give you 4 times at 12 seconds, that's 48 seconds, so you're about a minute and almost 40 seconds into the game before the next time delay is going to kick in, which is the 9-second one, I believe. So again, we'll say target reached is going to close the next logic gate. And I don't need that third counter, or the fourth counter. Okay, so now it's closed, so we're coming out the output of the last logic gate to this time delayer, which we're going to set to a time of 9 seconds. And its delay completed is going to go to the anchor. Sorry, I was just doing math in my head. And I'm thinking delay completed is going to increment by 1. And we are going to say, let's go to a target count of 7. Just because. And that target count reached is going to close the last logic gate. So its input blocked is going to start delay on this guy, which is going to be set to the time we decided of 6 seconds. And his delay completed is going to input to this anchor. Now the anchor is going to output back to this control logic to start the signal traveling all over again. So we're getting a loop going. We spawn an enemy, start the loop, start whichever time delayer we're at, and spawn another enemy. Now the thing is, I don't want to always spawn the same enemy, so I'm actually going to set it so that we're pointed at a randomizer. So that the output here is going to action this randomizer. Now we're not going to program in all the random stuff yet, because I just want to do some testing first. So I'll say a randomizer of 1, we're going to get Jiminy Cricket, and 2, we're going to do, I'm thinking, Kermit the Frog. Okay. So to test, when I start, I'm going to open that logic gate, and I'm going to send an input to this guy to start it all. And when I stop, the other stuff is still there, and I want to close that logic gate to stop the whole chain from going again and again. So let's test this. I'm going to push this button. You can see the time delay is already kicking over there, which means someone's already spawned. We got Kermit wandering here. Let's actually, while we're at it, see what Kermit looks like from up here. There he is. Follow him along. I heard another one spawn. There's another Kermit coming. We can go over here and just make sure that they vanish when they get to the water. Beautiful. Oh, there's Jiminy Cricket coming along too. Nice and well spaced apart. And there's another Kermit. So we should be, by now, we should be at the 12-second time delayer, spawning them. So we can actually look down here and see which time delayers. Yeah, we've moved on to the 12-second time delayer. We can see it kicking there. That's excellent. And beautiful. So our logic seems to be working. We have our guys spawning here, going across, disappearing over there. Everything's hunky-dory. So we've basically got the next part of our gameplay working. Next, what we're going to be doing in the next episode, of course, is we're going to be playing more with this dynamic trigger we added that's on the terrain there. And we're going to be using that dynamic trigger. And we can see, just wanted to point out, we've moved on to the next timed layer here. So they're now spawning every 9 seconds. But we're going to be using this dynamic trigger to actually control those townspeople that are walking up there. I want it so that when I push up on the analog controller, they're going to move farther away from the camera, and when I push down, they're going to move towards the camera. Because we're eventually going to put obstacles and things on this terrain we have here, and the goal is going to be to guide these townspeople around them safely to the far side over here. So, again, this is Samarian, and I hope some of this has been helpful to you. And stick around for the next video where we're actually going to be getting into that dynamic trigger and doing some more interesting things in the toy box. So, have yourselves all a wonderful day.